Before you ask me if this story is make-believe, ask me first if I think this world is real. Tales of the Airship Neverland, a steampunk fairy tale. Based on the novel by John R. White. Directed by Micheal Shea and John R. White. Original music by John Magnificent. Featuring performances by Amy Hurd, Mark Speck, Courtney Zimmer, and Christopher Williams. Episode 11. Come with me.
On a Wednesday night, Peter sat in a tavern. It was crowded, noisy, and filthy. There was a lively band on stage, singing, though he couldn't really follow the theme, but seemed to be rather good. The floor of the bar was a chaotic mixture of hay, stubble, drunken bodies, and vomit, the latter usually coming from the former. Peter was seated on a bar stool, drunk, to be sure. He wasn't hungry. He hadn't been hungry for a few days now. He thought the last thing he had eaten was about a week ago. That was when he had made a very important decision. He had decided, most resolutely, that he was quite sure that he was mad. You see, it all started with the ticking. Everywhere he went, he heard ticking. He woke up, ticking. He went down the street, ticking. It was quite annoying. Then there was the matter of his shadow. It had run away from him. Actually, run away from him. He was standing in an alley off Chickson and Grand Garden, shall we say, relieving himself, when he heard the ticking again. He quickly concluded his business and turned around to look for the source of the offending noise. All he saw was his shadow, etched against a wall. That wasn't unusual, but then it had run away.
That's odd. Shadows don't normally do that. They ought not to run away.
Charging down the alley, Peter followed his shadow. He didn't just follow it, he positively chased it. Arriving at the end of the alley, he finally saw the source of the ticking. And that was when he knew for certain that he had gone mad. His shadow was talking to a giant crocodile. A crocodile! The beast stood on two legs and was dressed in a black military uniform and was warming itself over a small fire. The two stood there, speaking in hushed tones. Peter froze in his tracks, slack-jawed. And when he thought it could not get any stranger, pirates fell from the sky. Then, naturally, the crocodile and shadow drew holstered pistols and started to shoot.
Lightning! They're shooting lightning! Of course!
The pirates, dressed in red wool and fur, at least had the decency to return fire with more traditional weapons. The smoke and lightning flashed off the brick walls, and Peter slipped to the floor and stared in amazement. It was crazy. Ticking crocodiles, shadows, and pirates. Peter had had enough, and did what madmen do, which was to run away screaming. After running several blocks screaming, it had left him out of breath and with a very parched throat. It was then that he decided to do something that made sense. He started to drink. A lot. Back in the pub, the bartender came over, and Peter tapped his glass.
Another.
Problems, mate?
There is no problem that cannot be solved by a liberal application of both denial and bad rum.
Woman?
Oh, that it were so simple.
Work perhaps? Bad job?
Not at all, though I have currently changed professions.
To what? From what?
Well, I was an artist. Good one, too. Tight living, but I rather enjoyed it.
So, what do you do now, mate?
I'm a lunatic.
Right. Much call for that? Room for advancement and all?
Well, in time, with experience, I hope to perhaps be escalated to the ranks of raving lunatic. But I've only just started.
I see. What's the future hold for madmen these days?
Well, there's Parliament. They seem to have their hands full. I have reasonable goals, however. I just thought a nice quiet slide into delirium first, and then perhaps later full insanity.
Well, it's good to have goals.
Indeed.
Right. Here, have some peanuts, mate. I'm just gonna pop over here and do something else.
Even as Peter proceeded to defile himself with alcohol, he was not oblivious to the arrival of a rather fetching young blonde girl who approached him. She was dressed unusually. A leather skirt, striped stockings, a black shirt under a craftsman's leather tool harness, and great brass goggles on top of a leather cap. She sat down immediately next to him and seemed to look him over a gander. This seemed reasonable to Peter, as she was pretty, and he was young and handsome. Peter chewed his peanuts silently for a moment. Then, needing to do something to break the ice, he leaned into her.
Meow, meow. What's your name?
Peter Prince. Bartender, another please.
Right. And you?
Mother's Ruin. A gin. Yes, please.
Right. There you go, miss.
What's yours?
Pardon?
Your name. I told you mine. It's only fair, you know.
Angela Bell. But call me Tink. Everyone does.
She smiled and looked at him in such a way that Peter felt his face immediately flush. Moving over, the unusual, albeit attractive, young woman sat directly in his lap. The bartender watched the exchange and shook his head in amazement.
How do you like that? Every night, same thing. The daft Lushingtons land all the swell birds. Cool. I give up.
You're cute.
She ran her hand over his chest, exposing his chest.
You're a fresh one. Well, that's all right.
There was a small yet distinct purplish birthmark on his chest that resembled a bird in flight. Tink looked around his neck, and there the light caught something and glinted.
Ooh, pretty, pretty. Where did you get that?
Don't really recall. I've always had it, since I was a kid.
Tink lifted up and inspected the antique silver necklace. Looking closer, her eyes twinkled as she heard it jingle as it moved. Dangling from it was a small, round, enclosed bell.
There you are.
Now, Peter was unaccustomed to such forward attentions from a lovely young woman, like the one currently astride his lap, and to be honest, he wasn't quite sure what to do. Nevertheless, after a moment's rum-fueled contemplation, Peter shrugged and leaned in to kiss her.
Yes, here I am. How about a bus for me, love?
Not here, silly. I'm a proper girl. Maybe you have a flat?
I do. Not far from here, in Whitechapel.
Shall we?
Had he known he would attract such a pretty class of girl, Peter was certain he would have gone insane sooner. Plunging into the chilly night, they walked down Wentworth until it turned to Old Montague. Peter teetered and tottered, so Tink leaned on him, holding him upright and chattering away.
So, Angela, I mean Tink, if you don't mind, how old are you, my love?
18. Well, I will be in 2 days. I'm very excited. Since you asked me, how old are you?
Well, to be honest, I'm not exactly sure. I'm more than 20, but the orphanage didn't know how old I was when they found me. I don't even know my birthday, so since Christmas seems like a good one, I celebrate it then.
That's kind of sad.
Well, give us a kiss then. That'll make me smile.
We're almost at your house. There, on the corner, right?
Yeah, wait. How would you know that? Oh, no.
It was then that, in addition to the demonic ticking, Peter's young companion did something that he was not expecting. The pretty girl reached into a pocket and brought out a small device. She then began to wave a brilliant flashing light. Then, descending from the clouds, and flashing lights back at Tink, the flying people came again. This was not the direction he thought the evening was going, and it was beginning to annoy him quite a bit.
People don't fly! They just don't!
The young man was quite certain it was a rule somewhere. Right after the rule about shadows running away, and right before the rule about crocodiles shooting lightning at pirates. He looked around for Angela. She was now in the middle of the road, waving at the flying people. And that was when, to make his night simply smashing, the crocodile came bursting out of the park.
Hello, Governor.
Yes, right. That bloody well secures it. I'm a bughouse loon.
So he did what any sane, insane person would do in this given situation. He fainted. Some brief moments later, Peter slowly awoke and blinked his eyes. It was windy and cold. The first thing he noticed was there was no ticking.
Well, that's good at least.
Peter, open your eyes. It's pretty.
Angela? Do you have wings?
Uh-huh.
That's unusual. Just thought so. Just checking.
Aren't they pretty? I made them myself.
Oh, of course you did. How silly of me for not knowing that. May I ask you something?
Okay.
Where are we going?
Neverland, Peter. We're going to Neverland. See it? It's up there in the clouds.
For there in the skies above London, as silent as the lightning storm in which it drifted, was a grand flying pirate ship. But no mere pirate ship. The vessel seemed to be as large as any ship of the line as he had ever seen. Most unusual, however, were the two rather large sausage-shaped balloons attached to it.
Balloons? Why not?
Peter had always been fond of balloons and thought that that was perhaps the least odd thing he'd seen recently. By this time, they were now very close to the ship, and Peter swore that he could see many people moving back and forth across its massive decks.
Might I ask another question?
Ask anything you'd like, Peter.
Tink?
Yes, Peter.
I hope you don't think me dreadfully rude. I was hoping you wouldn't be offended if I started screaming right now.
You're funny, Peter.
Tales of the Airship Neverland, Episode 11, was directed by Micheal Shea and John R. White, with continuity by Anne-Marie Carter Lamphier, and original music by John Magnificent, with vocal performances by Amy Hurd as Windy, Mark Speck as Alistair, Courtney Zimmer as Tink, Christopher Williams as Peter, and narrated by Tony Semanik, with additional performances by Jason Miller, Eric Johnson, Anne-Marie Carter Lamphier, John R. White, and Joan Buford. Tales of the Airship Neverland was recorded at K&R Studio in Southfield, Michigan, with sound design by Ken Glaser and Micheal Shea. To find out more about Tales of the Airship Neverland and to order both your books and audio drama episodes, visit airshipneverland.com. Tales of the Airship Neverland will return with Episode 1, Hook's Massacre.